All right, happy Earth Day. I am here in the greenhouse and it is time to start planting seeds. So what you can see here is I have some trays, I have my tables, I have a bench, which I rarely sit on, but I am for the purpose of starting this video because getting the camera angle right is a little bit difficult in here. However, what I wanted to show you was some of the tools and things that I use. So I have a narrow spade, a little shovel, and then I grab whatever sort of item I can find, like a little stick or something, because that's what I like to actually put the seeds down in. But you can totally just use your hands. It's perfectly fine. That's just what I use. And then what I have here are 6-pack seed starter sets, as well as a tray. And these trays are pretty critical. You want to make sure you get nice plastic trays that have no holes in them. And we're going to talk about watering. We're going to talk about the specific seeds that I start versus what I direct sow, which means just planting in the ground, not starting inside. And I'm going to kind of show you what I've already started here and exactly how I do it. As I said, I usually don't sit down for this. This just was for the purposes of getting this video started. So a lot of what I'm starting here today are herbs, and you can see I've already put in parsley, rosemary, chamomile, dill, basil. I actually started some green onions as well as romaine and butter crunch lettuce and jalapenos. Peppers are really good to start early. And peppers, or jalapenos specifically, I do every other year because I get such a good harvest. And then I'm able to freeze them. And I find that I just don't need to do them every year, which is great. I can pick and choose. So with all of this, basically I filled these with dirt. And all I do is I usually buy 1 bag of potting soil. That's usually enough. And I get just a big spoonful here, scoopful, and I basically go across and fill them very unevenly, very simply, move the dirt around and just get a little bit in each one. You can even half fill them, then put your seeds in and then add more on top after. Or you can fill them all the way and then make little holes. Like I said, I use a tool sometimes, and then just cover them over with dirt after. I do like to get a local organic potting soil. I find that is usually the best bet. Usually 1 bag is all I really need. Right here I have 144, basically I can start 144 plants with what I have here for trays and holders. And on 1 table, this is about half of what I've done in the past. But I've also realized that there are several seeds I do not need to start ahead of time. Those include corn. I don't have to start beans, but I can. Peas, I do not have to start inside. Sunflowers, I do not have to start inside. Carrots, a lot of the ground type of things like that. Those can all be direct sown. As a matter of fact, I found that corn and sunflowers do better if I don't start them inside. So that is one thing that is kind of nice to know, is why put in the extra effort if you really don't need to. So what I like to do with beans, because we do like to plant a lot of beans, and beans are kind of good for the soil. They put nitrogen back in the soil too, bush beans at least. So I do like to plant a lot of beans, and I actually like to do them in 2 kind of stages. I will start half of them inside ahead of time, and then I will do the other half direct sow outside. And like I said, that just means putting the seeds directly in the ground. And so that's what I'm doing here, is I'm starting some beans. And so I'm just putting, maybe 1 to 2 beans in each holder. And sometimes you might depend how many seeds you actually put in, might depend on how old the seeds are, how viable you believe that they might be. And so if they're pretty fresh seeds, maybe you only need 1 per container. If they're a little bit older, I mean, some of the seeds I had here that I started today are from 2019. So when they're a little bit older, I would say you might want to put 2, 3, maybe even 5 in there. Who knows? You can always divide most plants later if they all actually come up, if you get lucky. So I'm just putting them in here, and I'm not even using my little tool. I'm just using my shovel right now because this is what was sitting next to me. And I'm just sort of like pushing them down into the dirt a little bit. Now, with our growing season, a lot of things can't go out. Some early things can go out, say mid-May, as early as mid-May, if we have a warm spring. Other things can't go out until at least June 1st, like tomatoes and stuff. Right now, it's April 22nd today. Like I said, it's Earth Day and feels like a great day to be starting seeds. And it's also a great time frame to be starting seeds, given that this gives you about 5 to 6 weeks before some things can go outside. So it's a nice break in there. Gives them a few weeks to get going, but not so big that they start to like fall over, break, those types of things, especially beans. I find that if I have my beans inside too long, if they get too big, then they break when I go to plant them, which is always disappointing. They still survive, they still come back. I have had it happen many times, but it's just always disappointing when they break and I feel like they're kind of starting over. All right, so I just put in here, I just did all of these as beans, which is perfect. And I've done pretty much a 6-pack of each one of my herbs. I did 12 jalapenos. I did do a 12-pack of lettuce, of the romaine and butter crunch, just because in the early days when it's first getting going, if you actually want to make a salad, you're only going to get a couple of pieces of lettuce off of each one. And then tomatoes is the only thing I'm missing right now that I do want to start early. And for some reason, I always have a really hard time with eggplant. So I will probably buy those as seedlings just because. And anything that fails, any seeds that don't come in, any seeds that don't do well, I will also buy as seedlings if I really want those vegetables. And I think that that's kind of, to understand that gardening is a science, but it's not an exact science, that sometimes you just have to make concessions and move on. So I try to start as many seeds as I can. Like I said, anything that doesn't take, I may go out and buy seedlings if I really want it. I try to plant extra just in case things don't come up or in case they fail later on. I have extra of them. And that's kind of my seed selection piece. So let's talk about watering real quick. While they're small like this, or when you're putting seeds in like this, I always want damp soil. You'll see that the soil is very dark. And so you want it to be very damp, very moist. And a lot of times I will use a spray bottle before they kind of germinate, before they're starting to come up through the soil. But as soon as I start to see green, then I am going to start watering from the bottom. And that's why I said you want these trays. So I will pick these trays up and I will actually fill the bottom with water. And what that's going to do is it's going to avoid getting mold and mildew on the top. It's going to avoid possibly breaking some of your more delicate plants like dill and tomatoes when they're first coming up. They're real small, real tender. And so pouring a bunch of water on them could break them and damage them. But the other thing is it's going to encourage the roots to really go deep and go down for that water instead of staying shallow at the top if the water is down at the bottom of the tray. And so your root systems will just be so much healthier if you can water from the bottom. Lots of reasons to fill these trays with water instead of watering from the top, but I do water from the top and right up until I start seeing the green starting to pop up. All right, so I think that is pretty much it on planting seeds and getting things started in the greenhouse. Like I said, I probably start about half my stuff inside, the other half I direct sow outside. If you have questions about any specific plants and whether I've ever grown them or how I start them, then feel free to leave me a comment. All right, happy Earth Day.